Hey everyone, welcome to 60 Seconds of Stoicism, the only 60-second podcast on the internet that's 60 seconds long but lasts for a half hour. My name is Ryan. With me, of course, is my wife, Melinda.
Hello, guys.
And we have a fun topic this week, a topic that we've all dealt with and we've all been a part of, either giving or getting, and that is disrespect. And we're going to kind of look at a philosophical approach on that. I'm sorry if I sound like I have some vocal fry tonight. I don't know what it is. It's not intentional. I'm not trying to sound sultry on the microphone. It's just the way it is. So thank you guys for tuning in. First of all, we want to thank you guys for supporting. This podcast is growing. It's grown a lot. We've got it up on YouTube now, and we're getting hundreds of listens, where before we were getting dozens of listens because we are a new podcast, pretty much brand new. So thank you guys for the support, and you can listen to us now again on YouTube. We've got all the podcasts on there. They're all in a playlist. So please share that with others, and thank you guys for subscribing over there. We're making some noise on the channel, so we really do appreciate that. It's all here to help us be better people. So let's focus on disrespect. I think we start as very young children understanding what disrespect is. For that, think about, we've all worked in, you and I have both worked in early education. We've worked in education with older students as well. And seeing the disrespect on a young child, even at 1 year old, when something is taken from them, they retaliate with a bite or a scratch or a push. That's them feeling like they've been done wrong. Because that's the best way to put it. They've been done wrong. Something has hurt them or taken something away from them. And so they retaliate for it. Now, as we get older, that disrespect grows. We understand more the intentionality of disrespect with that, and it can cause us to really have some adverse things happen to us in our life as we get older, cause a lot of bad situations.
Definitely.
What's this? You've worked with primarily older kids the last couple of years with it. Do you see disrespect kind of waver as they get older, or does it get stronger?
I think sometimes it could be the same. In observing older kids compared to the preschoolers that I've worked with, you know, you tend to think, it's going to be a little bit better. And there's some areas that are, but sometimes the disrespect can still be there. Because obviously children's minds and their growth there could be some delays on certain things, or it could be the upbringing, it could be where they've come from. Maybe they didn't get a good foundation of teachings, you know, like in a preschool setting where they're taught how to control their emotions, just all social emotional growth and stuff. So I'm finding that even working with middle schoolers and high schoolers, they're still learning how to deal with their emotions and their words, and just kind of understanding where it's coming from.
Yes.
And that's the important thing, is just really trying to find out what is the root of that.
We're going to talk about a lot of that in just a minute here. Like, why is disrespect happening? We see it with kids for sure. We see it with our students, but then we see it with our teachers sometimes among each other.
Oh, yeah.
And,
it's honestly not any different.
You can see it anywhere. There's disrespect intentionally. There's disrespect unintentionally. There's all kinds of reasons for it. We're going to have a pretty Marcus Aurelius heavy night tonight as far as quotes go, because this is a man that suffered a lot of disrespect in his life. He got thrust into the position of being emperor, and a lot of people didn't think he should have been because he was so young, and he was kind of the adopted son going in. He had to deal with disrespect from people who didn't like the way that he was ruling, or from other provinces out there that were coming to war against him. Had to deal with a lot of things through the plague that they had and things like that. So there was areas for disrespect to pop up for him, and it's obviously something he dealt with a lot. And he has a ton of quotes, but we're actually going to start off with an Epictetus quote tonight to kind of lay the foundation. He says, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but instead answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, or else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" So,
I like that one.
Yeah, Epictetus, I mean, he always has some kind of comedy in the gold that he writes. But it's true, you know, it's kind of the sticks and stones can break my bones type of thing, you know. It's not going to hurt me that they said that, because honestly, it's probably true to some point. and they didn't know me very well, or else they would have said a ton of other bad things. So it's kind of a positive way of look at, it's kind of that, again, going back to that ataraxia, that I'm so strong and confident with who I am, the virtue that I'm holding up in my life, that no matter what somebody brings against me, it's not going to hurt me for that. And that's kind of the basis for our views on that with philosophy. We're going to look at another quote here really quick, and then we're going to kind of get into the reasons that disrespect happens and kind of the reasons why we feel we get disrespected. A Marcus Aurelius quote here: "God did not intend my happiness to rest with someone else." And that is such a strong sentence right there. Aurelius often writes between the difference between God and nature, and to him it's one and the same. And he's talking about my goal as a human is not to find the worth from other people's words, and that it's to find my own worth. It's for me to understand that I'm a good person, that I am trying to do the other thing, and I don't need that validation for it. You also had a quote, I believe, that you wanted to read.
This is actually from Jesus in the Bible. In Matthew 4:4, Jesus teaches a radical approach to dealing with enemies and those who treat us poorly. So he says, "But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." And, we are called to actively respond to rudeness and hurt with love and prayer rather than retaliation, which is what we tend to go to.
Sure. So that's kind of looking, not only does Aurelius say, don't worry about other people's stuff, but then Jesus is saying, but then also be empathetic towards them and forgive them for what they're saying for that too. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to take a quote from the Bible. Jesus tells you, if somebody smite you, turn to them the other cheek. That actually comes from a Roman tradition, to where if a Roman soldier found something at fault with the other person and he smacked them, they would turn to them the other cheek, which is actually a symbol of defiance, where we think, this is a symbol of, kind of acquiescing and saying, you can't hurt me, just go ahead and do what you want. Because when you smited somebody on the other cheek, it was done with the right hand. When you turn them the other cheek, then they had to remove their gauntlet and use their left hand to smack the other cheek, and it was causing them to kind of degrade themselves from switching from their right dominant hand to their left, the hand they eat with, towards the hand that they wiped with, so to speak, and just being very candid on that. And so it was kind of like, go ahead and hit me on the other cheek, but I'm also causing you pain in doing this. I'm making you uncomfortable for that. It's a chance for that other person to examine themselves and say, is this really worth it that I'm doing it because this person's being defiant? And not defiant in a bad way, but just basically doing like Aurelius is saying, and saying, I'm not going to let that hurt me. If you think that's bad, then go ahead and try the other side of my face for that. So definitely. It's, again, having that centeredness of knowing that I'm okay, I'm virtuous, I'm doing the right thing, that's not going to affect me. Couple of things that we want to talk about. I think, first of all, we kind of have to examine the reasons for disrespect that we have. There's different reasons why people will say things about you, do things to you, kind of go behind your back. Let's talk about one of those here. And this is maybe the biggest one of all, and that's insecurity. Yeah. So people have a lot of insecurity. I go back to like my school age days, when I say a little bit of bullying went on that I had to deal with, and a lot of those people were insecure. They were dealing with things in their own home lives. I know at least one of them that gave me the hardest time was living in poverty. He may not have had money for food, kind of wore the same things to school every other day, that kind of thing. So even at that young age, I could have a little bit of compassion for, we did not grow up rich myself, but I could see that this person was probably struggling at home. So there's a lot of insecurity that's involved in that. So let's look at some of the reasons why we are insecure. First of all, jealousy. Mm-hmm. Jealousy. People don't like that you've achieved something, that you're doing something with your life, that maybe you were born a certain way, like into a certain family of maybe wealth or privilege for that, or that you are more centered. They are struggling with their life, and they see this person that's happy. They resent the person for being happy. You want to disrespect them. They want to bring them down to their level. Aurelia says, you want praise from people who kick themselves every 15 minutes. The approval of people who despise themselves. Why do you want approval from people who don't know where or who they are on this planet? And that's the jealousy right there. They see you advancing and working towards something, and they become jealous because they have no idea who they are in their life. And so they're willing to put all of this on someone else and say, okay, what can I do to bring you down a notch?
Yeah, I've definitely dealt with that in a relationship. I've dealt with that at my workplace and many workplaces that I've worked at before. So yeah, I have some experience in that area.
Disrespect can also come in a workplace when it comes to promoting oneself. And I don't mean necessarily promotions and I'm trying to get a higher position in the company, but promoting themselves and I'm doing a better job than this person here. Mm-hmm. And the only way I can do it, instead of proving it through my own worth, my own actions, I'm going to try to degrade them so that I look better than them in doing that. And that's something that I've dealt with years ago when I worked in a different job than the one I have now. I had people that I worked with that we were producing a certain thing. We had to produce a certain amount of them each day. And the person would take half of what I did and lie and say it was theirs.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, the manager was like, wow, look at all these ones that this person did. And I said, you know what? So what I did was I started tagging mine. I was a young man. We were building bicycles at the time. So just to give you context, and we had to build a certain day. I started tagging mine underneath the where the crankshaft is on the bike, putting an R underneath one of those. So when he would come and see all those bikes and the other person would take credit, I would say, I built all those. And he would say, I would show him. I was like, see, there's my initial right there under each one of these. I built them. And it was kind of my way of, you know, just saying, hey, I'm not going to let you do this anymore. I was a young man. I probably, as an older man, would just straight up tell the person, I built these. I'm going to tell the manager that this is what I've done. And, you know, I appreciate you just trying to up your game instead of tear down mine in the most gentle of ways for that. So, yes, self-promotion for sure. Yeah. Fear of failure, I think, is one that's interesting for disrespecting someone for that. We want to be so successful in the things that we do that we don't want to fail in it. So we will take the blame and put it on other people, which is disrespect on there. Yeah, that is. I would have succeeded. I would have done great at this, but so-and-so was not on board. Or these didn't come in time, or it wasn't done the way I wanted it to, or else it would have really succeeded for that. And we try to find excuses. We may know it may not work, and so we're putting these little safe, I guess scapegoats, if you will, out there that just in case it doesn't work, I'm going to make sure that somebody else takes the blame for it, which is also disrespectful for that. And I understand it's a self-preservation thing. People don't want to lose their jobs. People want to get fame and power and opportunity. And when those things look like they're not going to happen, it's very easy to point the finger at someone else. Yeah,
they don't want to look like the failure. Yeah,
absolutely. Another reason is just to promote oneself. You know, we talked about that. And I'm not talking about like promotions at work, but I'm just talking about an individual. You know, look what I'm doing over here. I'm working out 4 days a week. Oh, that person's working out 6 days a week over there. Well, yeah, but that's because they're doing it wrong. You know, if they did it like me, you know, it'd be better. And we're disrespecting the efforts of the other person. They said nothing against you. They did nothing against you. You're choosing to attack them to promote yourself. And have everybody kind of look at you and say, oh, yeah, that's the right person right there. That's the one I want to follow. When we do that, we're degrading ourselves in the process. So Marcus Aurelius says you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. It doesn't matter that person is working out 2 more days a week than you are. Are you okay with who you are as a person inside? That's that virtuous behavior for it. Yeah. Can you think of a time in your life, kind of taking this example, where somebody has pointed at you or said something to you or said something about you to someone else, in order to maybe promote themselves or to make themselves look better?
Probably at a job place that I've worked at in the past. Definitely. Or they did certain things to sabotage something that I did or something that I created because they were so upset that, the boss was looking at what I did, and now, were turned to someone else and not them, so even though I continued to offer my help and, the help of others to make sure that everyone around me was succeeding, but they just still didn't like the fact that, that I was getting some sort of praise or attention.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And it kind of hurts a little
Yeah.
bit, and it's kind of, it's very dishonoring because it's like, man, I worked so hard on something, and you're not, and I'm just not trying to take this praise, that I'm also offering help for everyone else, because I was just I'm very much a team player. I'm like, I don't want to just win alone. Like, I want us all to win together.
Of course.
I'm very much a team person. So
I remember a situation where you had created something beautiful in your classroom. I think it was a big tree that you had made for the students in your classroom with all these blossoms and everything on it. And you had a coworker that was coming in when you were gone and ripping them off the wall.
yeah, I was like every day or every other day I was coming in, and it was just kind of odd that some of the things were pulled off the wall.
Yeah, and it wasn't like at a child's level where they could reach it. It had to be an adult. And
It was.
Yeah, and it was just
because it was a tree.
Yeah, blatant act of disrespect, so to speak, for that. So, and again, that was just because you were getting some eyes on you for the good things you've done. Yeah. So we have to talk about how we can fix this as ourselves, because I don't think we can ever get to the point where we can fix other people unless they're willing to change on their own. But we can fix ourselves. That's the whole, obviously, dichotomy of control we talk about all the time. Our control is how we can respond to that. Marcus Aurelius says, "Why do unskilled and untrained souls disturb souls with skill and understanding?" So he's asking you a question. Why are you letting this affect you? Why is this something that is hurting you or making you feel angry in a certain way? I mean, how many of us have acted in our life at some point out of disrespect, where we've attacked the other person or we've just let it ruin whatever we're trying to accomplish because we're so angry that we've just been disrespected? And if you're telling yourself, I've never been disrespected, have you ever been intentionally cut off in traffic?
Yeah.
Because we all feel disrespected at that point. But how many of us have also done that, not realizing, that we've done that to other people? So how do we deal with that? So the first thing I think, the first suggestion is we need to have an emotional detachment from it. That is very hard. We have to look at it as an analytical response rather than an emotional response. That why is this person specifically doing this to me? Okay, well, the boss came by and said, you're doing a great job on this in front of them. And they've been working pretty hard. They've been staying every day, but they just can't seem to get it right. So I understand why they're upset. What kind of response could you have to that person that's positive? If you knew that was going to happen, they disrespected you because the boss told you that you were doing a good job, even though they're trying very, very hard. What could you do to kind of respond and make that a positive situation?
Just point out some of the things that we did together or that the other person did as well. Not to just take the credit alone, but just say, hey, just kind of point out some of those things that other person did as well. Or sometimes I actually been in that situation. I was like, I got to give credit where credit is due. Like, if it wasn't for so-and-so, like, I wouldn't have been able to finish it. I wouldn't have, been able to come out with the thing that I finished, if it wasn't for the other person supporting me and helping me or even just cheering me on. I wouldn't have been able to get it done.
Oh, that's good. That's very good. I don't think there's anything wrong with positively confronting someone on disrespect. Where if you walked over to that person, let's take the same scenario, the boss just gave you all this praise for the great job you're doing. You walked over to that person saying, hey, I noticed how hard you're working on it. I noticed you were even here a couple of days when I wasn't working on it for it. So I appreciate it. That really inspired me, to work harder. That's great. Now, if that person turns around and says, screw you, you get all the praise and here I am for 7 days, then you might just have to give a little nod, turn around and walk away, and that's it. Which goes into my next one here. No one is responsible for your validation. Mm-mm. So we want other people to always tell us you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
We like what you're doing. We like where you're heading. We're a quote-unquote fan of who you are as a person. And then when that doesn't happen, we get really upset. Yeah. Because we want them to all validate it. We want them to recognize the hard work we've done. But nobody's responsible for doing that.
No, that's true.
The only one that is responsible for doing that is ourselves. Yeah. We have to validate ourselves. And that's done by holding ourselves to those high virtues. Am I being wise about this? Am I being courageous in what I'm trying to do? Am I justified with what I'm doing? Am I using self-control in what I'm doing? And if I can answer yes to all those things, then that is the validation. It's not outside sources. Those are bonuses if they come, and that's great. But we have to be our own internal validation.
I think sometimes as adults we forget that we then can do that on our own, because when children are little, we praise children all the time. And, because we want them to feel like they matter, that there's someone that whatever they're doing is recognized. But I think then we take that then into adulthood, and we feel like we should still get that. And we should recognize people. But you're right. At some point we should be able to do that and say that to ourselves, and not expect that of others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. And another thing we have to do is we have to ask ourselves, are they doing anything different than I've done before? And Marcus Aurelius addresses this. He says, whenever you're about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I'm about to criticize? What have I done that's exactly like what that person did to me? Oh yeah, they came up and said this to me, and I just did that 2 years ago to another coworker, and I saw how bad that was to them. So I'm not going to really take so much stock in that because I know I'm capable of it myself. So
We're all guilty of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way to diffuse it, for sure. I want to talk just briefly about a story. We talked last week about Job. We're going to talk this week about Joseph. Arguably one of the biggest disrespects in the Old Testament with Joseph. You guys all probably know the story of Joseph and his coat of many colors. If not, you've seen the musical. But he was very much loved by his father. His father paid a lot of attention to him. And there could be some argument. I know people have argued about that favoritism from parents and how that's a trap we need to avoid because what that can do to children growing up. But he loved Joseph, and he made a coat of many colors. Colors were very expensive back then, to have multiple colors. We talked about that going back to Zeno and how he was a seller of purple because that was so expensive. So having a coat of many colors was a riches that was bestowed on Joseph. His other brothers get very upset. They dig a pit, throw him inside, sell him off to be a slave, and then take his coat and dip it in goat's blood and take it to their dad and say, he was attacked and killed, which puts his dad into mourning, of course. Joseph goes into this period where he's imprisoned and he gets out, and then he finds favor from Pharaoh, and then Pharaoh's wife tries to basically attack him and sleep with him, and he gets himself out of there, and he goes through all of these circumstances, and finally finds favor again and is put into a high position of power because he maintains his character through all of this disrespect that he's had. Disrespected by his brothers, disrespected by Pharaoh, disrespected by his wife. And now he's gotten past all that through his faith, and his brothers return during a great famine to him, not even realizing who Joseph was. Joseph had the power at that point to have them all beheaded if he wanted to. He could have just gotten his revenge for the disrespect he had. Instead, he looks on them with nothing but love. Yeah. He misses them. He has forgiven them. He has moved on. And not only does he give them the food that he needs, but he tells them to come back, and he blesses them with some riches. And to me, it's a great example. We get upset if somebody calls us a name.
Yeah.
Let alone being thrown in a pit, sold into slavery, and having to deal with all of these other things, being in jail, and still being so forgiving.
And that's the key word right there, forgiveness. Because some people would say, well, he was so disrespected. Why did he forgive them? He didn't have to do that. He had every right to retaliate, to, have them put to death, because he was in such high power, and he could have turned them away and said, because you put me in that position. But then look where he moved on. It wasn't excusing, forgiveness was not excusing what they did, but he also recognized, I don't have to be like them, and here's a chance for me to help them. And had this situation not happened, had he not gone through that obstacle, he wouldn't have ended up where he ended up, which was having high power and
Positive influence,
being able to save so many people's lives because he was now, helping Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Just saved lives of people and just like changed history. So had he not moved on, he wouldn't have been able to be in the position that he was, and then also been able to help his own family in return. And just say, hey,
Yeah. And what was his two motivators through it? It was one, faith, obviously, and two, his own virtue. With it. I have to do what's right. Yeah. Even though the bad has been done to me, I have to do what's right. It is the only way I know how to live. Mm-hmm. So those outside things can't hurt me. They can't affect me.
Yeah.
And led to his ultimate forgiveness from them. So very good. Okay, so that brings us to our next thing, is addressing the situation when you've been disrespected. First and foremost, a gentle conversation. I'm using gentle as the caveat here. A conversation with someone who's disrespect you. Using statements that are not you. Take the word you out of them. And put yourself in I or me. Or when this is said about me, I feel disrespected or belittled for it. Mm-hmm. And I want to know why. Or I get scared when people say things about me that are untrue. Mm-hmm. And I'm just trying to understand how maybe I could be better. That kind of thing that diffuses the situation. People might be very honest. People might straight up say, I just don't like the way you look. You really get on my nerves, that kind of thing. If so, then that is their problem. Mm-hmm. But people are going to be upsetting, so we have to find a way to kind of combat that. Mm-hmm. We have to make ourselves a shield. We have to have a shield around us. We talked about being virtuous, but you also have to have a shield of that ataraxia. I'm going to let those things bounce off my proverbial fortress of myself when they're said to me, because they don't matter. Yeah. As Aurelius tells us, they don't matter what's being said. He says, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, unfriendly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. Yeah. That's actually kind of coming from a point of pity for them. They haven't learned yet what's good and what's bad. They're going to do things that are meant to hurt me. That's sad for them.
I know when I wake up every day, it's not going to be a world of perfectness. I know I'm going to be cut off in traffic. I know I'm going to be disrespected. I know I'm going to be misunderstood. But the thing is, I just have to prepare myself. Mm-hmm. I have to come knowing that I have to control my emotions and the way I'm going to feel about it. And I don't have to have an opinion about it and just let it go,
Yes.
And it's really hard. I have to prepare my mind for that because I know I'm going to face that. I know I'm going to face it as soon as I walk out that door. Yes. And I get in my car and I get to work and coming back home. So it's just really preparing yourself for those moments because it's going to happen.
Absolutely. And that's what he's saying. I love that. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself or prepare yourself that all these bad things are going to happen to me today. And if they don't, great.
Yeah.
But at least your mindset is like, okay, this is just the human condition. Mm-hmm. We're all flawed. And it's not meant to be anything more than what it is, just a bunch of words. The time may come where in this dispute, we talk to somebody and it gets into an argument or a disagreement or into threats. We just need to leave. Mm-hmm. We need to leave the situation. Going back to Joseph, when Pharaoh's wife was going after him, trying to get him to sleep with her, he just left. Joseph just ran.
He just ran.
In fact, it says he jumped out of his coat. She was still holding his garment when he took off. I'm being disrespected right now. I'm just getting out of the situation. Maybe we don't want to run away right now if we get into an argument with a coworker, but we can be calm, first of all, and listen. Because Aurelius also tells us there's advice in what other people say, and if that advice is meant for me to be better, then I should take it and apply it to my life. So, be calm and listen. Be respectful of their views, because there's no need to show them disrespect in the process. And honestly, feel a little sympathy for them. Going back to what Aurelius says about that, they don't know good from evil from
It's
this.
the same thing working with older kids,
Yeah.
I face disrespect a lot. And it's easy for me to just right away get upset, and I feel like it's personal, but I'm really trying to remember, these kids are still learning. They haven't had enough life experience, and they're still trying to control their emotions. Like you said, I have to just listen to them and find out what happened this morning or what happened last night. What's the reason? Or they're probably just tired. They didn't get enough sleep, or they haven't had enough to eat, or they don't have parents at home who really care about them. So, like you said, just really trying to understand the other person and having sympathy for them.
That's good, because I feel like 5 years from now, you'll look back on this and won't see it the same way as you do right now in the moment.
And I do. And, and it's crazy because these kids, they know. I think that's what gets me through the day, and I try not to take it so personal because I can tell where they start to shift, and they'll come and say, hey, Miss Melinda, I'm really sorry, or
Sure.
they start to really open up to me and tell me why or what. One of my students, first thing she came in and she was just really upset, and I kind of gave her some space. I didn't right away go to her and ask her what was going on, but it really helped me to continue how I react, because had I not, I wouldn't have been able to build that relationship with her, because she came in one day and she was just like, I just want to talk to you. I feel like you're the only person who really truly listens to me when I say I have something to talk about. And I'm going to tell you, this girl at first was very disrespectful to me all the time, rolled her eyes at me, didn't care what I said, or, and just had to chip away at that, for the past almost 2 years now that I've been there. And now the same girl, I'm the first person, she was just like, I just want to talk with you. I feel like you're the only person who truly listens to me. So,
Yes.
yeah.
That's a very good story, because it's the last point. I think it flows beautifully into that. Have patience.
Have patience.
With that. Have patience. It's amazing how often you can turn an enemy into an ally just by giving them a little bit of time. I always prided myself when I was a young man, and even now, that I could work with anybody, including the other people didn't want to work with, because I just did my job. I did my job, and if things were said, or, I just didn't really let it bother me. I'm just like, okay, I know what's expected of me, and I'm going to do it for it. But it required patience. And then some of those people that I didn't like and nobody else liked started saying, hey, you want to go to lunch? Like, you want to hang out? I'm like, really? You guys, we're okay? We're cool? Because, and again, it's not something that I did that was great. I just did what I was supposed to do. That was it. And in the process would gain a friend. So that's another way to do it, just to have respect for that. We have to wrap up here. We are over 30 minutes. That's okay. We try to keep it around 30, but, hey, bonus minutes. Last Marcus Aurelius quote. It's a long one, but a great one to finish out with. If someone despises me, that's their problem. But mine is not to do or say anything despicable. If someone hates me, that's their problem. But mine is to be patient and cheerful with everyone, including them. Ready to show them their mistake, not spitefully, or to show off my own self-control, but in an honest, upright way. That's the way we should be like inside, and never let the gods catch us feeling anger or resentment. Wonderful advice for that. It's very easy to dislike a person because they have disrespected you. It's very easy to turn enemies from people that should not be enemies, that have really done nothing to you. The only way to do that is to be satisfied with who you are inside as a good person. Uphold your virtue. Practice that eudaimonia, that fulfillment of righteous virtue, and say, hey, this isn't going to affect me, and I'm not going to return it back on you or anybody else.
That's good advice.
Yeah, very good. Thank you guys all for listening. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, we're available on YouTube now, so you can catch our podcast on there. And, of course, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, all of those. So thank you guys for subscribing. Head on over to our YouTube channel if you want to see some shorts and some other videos. We're doing some podcasts now, kind of geared towards, or I should say some long-form videos geared towards kids and teaching philosophy to children, because there's a lot of positive things we can learn from that as well. So thank you guys for listening. Until next time, take care of yourself, and as always, Semper Studiosus. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great night.